Brad Pitt is one of the biggest names in Hollywood, and he's a pretty solid get for any movie in the industry. I mean, look at that face. But he's been rejected and passed on plenty of movies in the past, and trust me, a few of them will blow your mind. So here's 10 massive movies Brad Pitt almost starred in. But before we get into it, head down and hit subscribe. It's very important to me and to Brad that you do. 1. The Bourne Identity. Jason Bourne is probably Matt Damon's most iconic role of all time, but Brad Pitt was actually the franchise's first pick. In fact, he was signed on and ready to go, but had to drop out after scheduling conflicts came up with his other film, Spy Game. Tom Cruise, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Russell Crowe were also considered to play Bourne before filmmakers eventually settled on Damon. 14 years and $1.6 billion in box office success later, they clearly made the right choice, but still, just imagine.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
2. Almost Famous. Cameron Crowe apparently wrote guitarist Russell Hammond into his classic 2000 film specifically with Brad Pitt in mind to play the role. They even spent several months crafting the character together, but in the end, Pitt apparently didn't get it enough to do it, and after all that work, dropped out. Well, Brad, good thing Billy Crudup got the character. 3. Heathers. It's hard to imagine Heathers without Christian Slater as JD, but Pitt was actually pretty close to playing the sociopathic teen. The film would have been Pitt's first feature film ever, and he even went so far as to doing table reads early in the film's development. However, producer Denise Denovi said she didn't find anything extraordinary about him at all, while others found him too sweet for such a dark character. Brad Pitt playing a dark character? What? Never. 4. About a Boy. While Pitt does appear very briefly in About a Boy, he was almost the lead. Pitt was the first pick to portray Will Freeman, but he thought the movie's premise was a bit too far-fetched and turned down the role. So, thanks to Brad Pitt, Hugh Grant got one of his most endearing roles to date. Grant was way more suited for the rom-com genre anyway, and the film was eventually nominated for an Oscar. 5. The Matrix. It's hard to imagine in today's Keanu craze that The Matrix's Neo was almost played by Brad freaking Pitt. Johnny Depp was actually the first choice for the role, but Warner Brothers also pushed for Pitt and Val Kilmer. That is, until they both declined. Ultimately, the studio threw young Keanu into the mix, and he nabbed the role from Depp because of his deep interest in the film's concept. Oh, Keanu, you gem. And honestly, watching this just feels wrong. Keanu forever. 6. American Psycho. Not only did American Psycho almost have Pitt at the helm, but a completely different writer and director too. Unfortunately for Pitt, and fortunately for Christian Bale, that version never got off the ground. Johnny Depp also almost got the role. Okay, so what's with that trend? Anyway, Mary Harron and Guinevere Turner's version of the film finally took off with Bale as its star, and he definitely nailed it. Or axed it. 7. The Shawshank Redemption. What if I told you that Brad Pitt almost beat out Morgan Freeman for Shawshank? Well, that'd be a lie. Are you kidding me? But the role of Tommy Williams was originally intended for Brad before he turned it down to do Interview with the Vampire instead. So, Gil Bellows picked up the character, and Pitt had to wait until 7 to finally work with Freeman. 8. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The Pitt versus Depp battle continues, as Brad was one of the many actors considered to portray the iconic Candyman. Others included Nicolas Cage, Jim Carrey, Robert De Niro, Dwayne Johnson, Adam Sandler, Michael Keaton, Will Smith, and Patrick Stewart. But, of course, Tim Burton went with his trusty partner Johnny Depp for the role. Pitt was still involved, though, as it was the last project under his and Jennifer Aniston's production company, Plan B Entertainment, before they split. The Departed. Imagining Brad Pitt doing a Boston accent is not great, but originally, he and Tom Cruise were supposed to co-star in Martin Scorsese's The Departed. As we all know, of course, both ended up dropping out, and Matt Damon replaced Pitt while Leonardo DiCaprio replaced Cruise. Pitt moved on to work on Babel, which earned him a Golden Globe nomination, so that was definitely a good call on his part. 10. Titanic. Brad Pitt could have been king of the world, but it turns out he just wasn't pretty enough. Pitt was considered for the role of Jack along with Tom Cruise, Matthew McConaughey, Ethan Hawke, and Macaulay Culkin? But, according to James Cameron, when Leo came in for an interview, every woman in the building came to the meeting, including an accountant and a guard. So obviously, DiCaprio sold the heartthrob turned icicle Cameron was looking for. Well, I would have let Brad paint me like one of his French girls. Believe it or not, the list of massive movies Brad Pitt almost starred in goes on, and it includes films like Sleepy Hollow, Apollo 13, Backdraft, and Kick-Ass, but you can't have it all, Brad, and every one of these movies just wouldn't seem right without their now iconic leads. What do you think? Could you imagine Titanic or The Matrix with Brad Pitt as the star? Let us know in the comments, and while you're down there, hit subscribe. You don't want to live in a world where Brad is Neo, and we don't want to live in a world without you as a subscriber. Until next time, stick with CinemaBlend for all of your entertainment news.